The previous basket is under review.
Welcome back to Stats by Will and Jim, a college basketball podcast that focuses on the numbers. We are proudly a part of the Basket Under Review umbrella, the very best college basketball community going on the internet. Please check out the site and the Discord. Only $10 a month gets you access to all kinds of written content from some of the best writers on the sport, including my co-host Will Warren, Brian Ralph, Jordan Majeski, Matthew Winnick, breaking down all the games with the watch lists for the NCAA tournament have been pretty much on point, Will. A lot of great breakdowns, previewing what you're going to see. We're going to do something new this weekend with the Sweet 16, where we'll have two writers cover each game, so you get different perspectives. We're very excited about that. We've also got the Discord, where Trilly Donovan's dropping coaching carousel and transfer portal tidbits. So I was in the portal thread, Will, the other day, just posting foreheads of players that are entering the transfer portal.
Yes. It's an interesting way to protect sources, I suppose. Is you
Yes.
just show but it does reveal like a certain type of fan who is able to recognize a forehead, or if a person has a very like recognizable hairline, I guess.
Yes, the hairline will give it away. You can like kind of vaguely see the team logo in the player's picture background. I think they're all from ESPN. So the screenshots are from. But yeah, it's been a fun start to portal season. It's not really portal season yet, but there's a lot going on in there. So highly encourage you to join the Discord for that. Also tune into the Burp, the Basket Under Review pod with Eamon Brennan and Tate Frazier. Weekend Under Review with Brian Ralph and Matthew Winnick. Scout Team with Kevin Sweeney and Eric Fawcett. So much content coming out of the Basket Under Review umbrella. So check that out. We are, of course, Stats by Will and Jim. I am your host, Jim Root, joined by Will Warren. And our topic today is Sweet 16 numbers. We are going through every single team that made the Sweet 16. We're going to have a number for each one of them. I generally skewed very positive, Will, because the fact is these teams all won their first two games. But there's one or two where I kind of highlighted something that I thought could be a warning sign. But before we get to it, which region are you most excited about? That's kind of a question I wanted to have. There's maybe a objective right answer for the mass appeal fan, but I'm curious if there's one that stands out to you as more exciting than others. And if you want to use your Tennessee bias, you are certainly allowed here.
I've been pondering it. I'm going to say, so I'll rank them by excitability for me. West, I am least excited for because I think that is the most obvious outcome. I wouldn't say like shocked, but like moderately surprised if it's not Arizona and Purdue. I would then go, in terms of pure intrigue, Midwest is probably third, unfortunately. Let it be known, like all of these regions have something really strong pulling me towards them. So even like Midwest, like I do genuinely think Tennessee, Iowa State's going to be a very good game and could be a coin flip. And Michigan, Alabama, you never know with Alabama. I am really tempted, and I'm not going to do it, to rank the South first because I do think both games are pure coin flips. But I'd go South second and East first. There's just so much coaching intrigue in the East. I'm suckered in by Duke, St. John's. Michigan State, UConn doesn't need to sell. I do think that is the one that's going to have the most eyeballs on it.
Yep, I think the East is that one that, if you're a casual fan, that's the one people have got to tune into. Major brands, major coaching names, a lot of national titles among that group. I guess John Shire is the only one without one, but Duke stands on its own as a brand. The Midwest is kind of the one I just wish we had full health for everybody. I don't know if Aiden Holloway is going to be let out of the doghouse / jail cell. I don't know. Joshua Jefferson's status is very up in the air. Just as we started recording, got a John Rothstein. Jefferson is continuing to progress, and I don't even know if that means he's walking yet. So I can't really project that he's going to be okay to play Friday against Tennessee, but still an exciting game there. Yeah,
he's got the scooter. He's got the scooter out at least.
Yes, I like your point in the South. Both games are going to be really, really good, and I just don't know if the regional final is going to be quite as good. That's my one hesitation there. But all right, before we also talk numbers and go back and forth, I do want to get to the stat of the day, Will, which I didn't know what the result would be when I started looking it up, but in the round of 32, so 16 games, how many of these 16 winners also won the shot volume battle? And now I did a rudimentary calculation here of field goal attempts plus free throw attempts times 0.45. So how many shooting possessions did each team have? And so of 16, how many? And then the bonus can be, can you name the ones that did not? So that's the
Okay,
question I posed.
I'm going to guess 13.
So this stunned me. It was only 7.
Whoa,
Which,
really?
yes, and I need to actually reopen my my file. I had some computer issues right before we recorded. I have my list of all the teams that did it, but yeah, a lot of them are pretty narrow. The very common theme among the ones that did not is 2-point percentage dominance, like utter 2-point percentage dominance. But I'll give you a chance to name some of the teams that did not.
Okay. Teams that did not win it. Boy, this is going to be tough. I have to really think on the fly here. I would guess Tennessee probably did it just from turnovers.
Tennessee did not. I couldn't believe Tennessee got kind of whomped on the boards. It was a weird, like, I think I don't. Oh, let's look at the actual free throw. So Virginia took 69 field goal attempts. Tennessee took 55. So big blowout there. But then 25-11 in free throws. So adjusted down, I've got Virginia with about 7 more shooting possessions, which is shocking to me.
Interesting. Okay, Iowa's for sure one.
Not Iowa, which
What?
another, like, I could not believe this. Both Iowa took 51 shots and 22 free throws. Florida took 46 shots and 27 free throws.
Wow.
Yeah, that there will be a number about Iowa from that game. Just
I'm gonna guess Texas because I'm remembering Gonzaga beat them on the boards pretty well.
Yep, Texas was narrowly a shot volume loser. I have 2 winners that were
Arkansas. Arkansas was a loser in this.
Yep, Arkansas as well. 2 of them, actually, excuse me, 3 were 10 or like 10 fewer shooting possessions.
Oh boy. So this has to be like a 3-point percentage stat then. So I'm gonna guess Michigan State.
Michigan State. They were a loser, but not a double-digit one.
Damn it.
And that one's, again, like, based on the free throw calculation. They took 8 less field goals than Louisville, but 13 more free throws.
So man, I've really got to think. Actually, this could be Alabama.
Alabama actually won the shot volume, 68-61.
I'm so lost.
No, I know.
Nebraska. I don't know why I didn't think of Nebraska.
Yeah, Nebraska was a big shot volume. They were one of the 10-point ones, or 10 shots. They took 52 field goals and 10 free throws compared to 58 field goals and 19 free throws for Vanderbilt.
It's not against a great shot volume team either.
No, it's very surprising.
Yuck.
So I'll just go ahead and give you the one that it lost by the most. It was Duke. Duke got crushed. They took 49 field goals and 23 free throws. TCU took 69 field goals and 10 free throws. You look at the box score, the biggest discrepancy is 9 turnovers. Duke turned it over 17 times. But that was also one where 2-point percentage was essentially double, like 70% to 36%. So,
and the pure rebounding numbers are a little skewed just because TCU got more offensive rebounds, but in terms of percentage of getbacks, they got back 11 of their 44 potential rebounds. Duke got back 9 of 23 potential. So there you would give the edge to Duke, but yeah, that is strange.
Yeah, and then Purdue also got kind of whomped in this category. 47 field goals.
Miami was so good on the boards this year.
Yep. 47 field goals, 22 free throws. Miami took 63 field goals and 10 free throws. A lot of these, the winning teams, no surprise, there's correlation here, took a lot more free throws. Some of that is paint dominance, some of that is fouling late in games, but generally, I think it was rim dominance was a pretty big theme of the round. So a lot of the Big Ten teams did not win the shot volume battle. Purdue, Michigan State, Nebraska. I thought there was one more. Nope, maybe that's just it. But yeah, I found this very surprising that it wasn't like a complete walloping in that department.
Yeah, that's so. I mean, like I would have wagered significantly more because shot volume's been such a big story of the season at large, and we had the whole thing I can't remember who put this together, but the piece about how elite teams have started to move towards the front court battle as opposed to, the little phase there was a lot of like 4.5 out or 5 out or 4 out 1 in. We have a lot more front court dominance, which is leading to, I would say fewer upsets in general. But
Yeah.
as we thought months ago, this did lead to a great round of 32.
Yeah, fantastic round of 32 starting like Saturday night and then all through Sunday. Great games. It might have been Kevin Sweeney, Sports Illustrated, who wrote something about like, I know you had some Todd Golden quotes about leaning into rim dominance, paint dominance, rebound dominance that has set some of those teams up and made them a little seemingly more upset proof. But then suddenly along comes Florida, Iowa, and you have to reconsider everything. But okay, let's move to our stat rotation, go back and forth. But first, a shout out to Home Field Apparel, which is the best place to get your college sports gear. Buy it now. Maybe you'll get it before the Final Four, TBD. I'd get your order in as fast as you can. Make sure you use promo code BURNER15 for 15% off your first order when you do it. Check out the new Hoop Society drop. The Campus Court collection is amazing. It's got all these great retro logo hoodies and shorts from some of the sport's most iconic programs. You can also go back through their deep, deep catalog of any other school, purchase something there with t-shirts, sweaters, jackets, hats, joggers. It's all at homefieldapparel.com. Homefieldapparel.com. Wear one for the team. Remember, promo code BURNER15 for 15% off your first purchase. All right, we're going to go left side of the bracket and then right side of the bracket. So Will's going to lead the discussion on the West. Then we'll move to me for the South, then back up to the top right for the starting with the East on the top left, Duke's region, then to the South, then to the West on the top right of your brackets, and finish in the Midwest on the bottom right. So Will, lead us off with your first stat in the East.
All right, so we are also going to go vertically for me here. So north to south.
Yep.
We'll start with Duke.
Yep.
We're going to start with Duke, and this is a huge one to me because this player did not play Friday or Thursday, but did play Saturday. Plus 19. When Patrick Ngongbo was on the court, this is how many points Duke outscored TCU by in 22 on-court possessions. Alternately, plus 19 in 13 minutes. Considering Duke outscored TCU by 4 in the remaining 27 minutes of the game, you can make the argument Ngongba, more than Cam Boozer, more than anybody else in the team, won them that game. Caleb Foster does matter to me. I am really curious to see his status for this week. Shire has said he's progressing towards playing. That to me doesn't mean he is playing, but it means that he has a chance at it. I would kind of wonder if he's more likely to play in a hypothetical Elite 8 game than he would be the Sweet 16. Every day does matter for recovery, so we'll see there. But the healthier Ngongba is, the more I think everybody is going to buy in on this Duke team. I'm not the biggest on-off guy, but it matters to me that Duke is 11 points per 100 better when he's on the court this year, and almost all of that impact comes defensively. And I thought we really saw that impact not just in the TCU game, but Siena, which I don't think anybody really saw coming. But, Duke had that real scrap with Siena for as long as they did, in large part because they couldn't stop Siena. I mean, defensively, it was a lot of drives down low, which Gongba usually takes care of, and a lot of, struggles with kick out threes. And, Foster would have mattered there, but it was interesting to me to see Duke have to go to a zone against a 16 seed. And to their credit, Shire did roll that zone out again against TCU. Probably a smarter bet there, considering TCU's shooting woes in general. But all that being said, the more this guy plays, the more I do like Duke to get out of their region.
Yeah, fully 100% agree. And it's a weird discussion because Malik Brown was the ACC Defensive Player of the Year, but the Duke defense is, as you mentioned, like 11 points better per 100 with Ngongba on. It's 7 points per possession worse when Brown is out there. And part of it is the way they're able to play. They're a lot more drop coverage heavy. They can take away the rim. Brown is more disruptive and versatile, lets them be more switchable. But Ngongba is such a rock around the rim. Really strengthens their defensive rebounding as well. You mentioned, I think TCU only grabbed 25% of their misses. That's well below their season average. Duke has just been fantastic on the boards when Ngongba's out there. I think he's huge for their title run. I think there's been a few Duke fans that have said as much to me in discussing them and whether he's going to be back for the NCAA tournament or not. And I do wonder what the Siena game would have looked like if he was out there, because he just gives them a different element as a finisher. He's a good passer, and clearly the defensive impact is enormous.
And I mean, with that game, I will mention Duke did shoot unusually poorly from three, but that is something that can happen in a one-off setting, especially with this ball. And I mean, like I do think like maybe I underestimated how much the injuries would matter, but I do think having Ngongba back is more important than having Foster back to me if you had to choose one or the other.
Yeah, I think definitely, and I'm fairly confident Duke fans would agree with that, even though they like Foster. Ngungba is just so massively important. Okay, what about St. John's?
The Johnnies had a really interesting weekend to me. I did hear Norlander pull this stat up, but I don't know if he did it for both games. My number here is 64. That is the number of threes attempted in the first two games of the NCAA tournament by the Johnnies. Alternately, your numbers here are first and third. The KU game had 35 3-point attempts, which is a season high. UNI 29 3-point attempts, the third highest. This remains a bad shooting team. They didn't really shoot particularly well from three in either game, but I found it interesting that they're so willing to move out to the 3-point line now, because this, for a while under Rick and for most Rick teams, it's not been the most 3-point reliant offensive structure in general. I think that their willingness to shoot was a little bit determined by the opponent. Kansas really took away the rim in that game. I think Jordan Majewski had the stat that it was SJU's second lowest rim point total since what he called the Great UConn disaster.
Oh, God.
And I do think it was the best bet they had, especially given their huge rebounding edge against an awful rebounding team in Kansas, which you and I harped on for 2 months. We'll leave that aside. I guess my question is, like, can you run that back against Duke? Like, are we going to watch a Sweet 16 game on Friday where St. John's attempts 32 threes? And is that the smartest bet if Ngongba plays, if Malik Brown plays, and Duke does the thing they usually do, which is take away the paint so well? Like, it's a really interesting thing. And in general, I would prefer to see to see Duke run drop against St. John's and just say, have at it, boys. Take as many threes as you want, because we like you facing off against that a lot more than we would draw, hedge or switch coverage. But in general, it's a really interesting thing, and it's a kind of a surprise face turn late in the season, especially after a year where they've been averaging about 20 to 21 threes a game.
Yeah, the 281st nationally in 3-point attempt rate. This isn't a team that has shown that tendency all season. And maybe, as you mentioned, part of it is opponent. Like, if they're able to physically dominate somebody in the paint the way they were some of those Big East teams, of course, by game competition, that would dictate just getting to the rim. And Northern Iowa is a fantastically structured defense. Kansas, definitely the same. They're pretty good at dictating where you're going to take your shots, but neither of them has as high of a defensive 3-point attempt rate as Duke. Like, Duke really takes away the rim. They're 23rd in 2-point attempt distance average per KenPom, so they force jumpers. And I'm at least encouraged by, look, if St. John's is going to have to take jumpers, make them threes. Don't live in the mid-range. Play a little bit of the math game against Duke. I was also surprised by this revolution almost for the Red Storm. Some of it just dictated by the way the game played out and what was available to them. But that's probably what's going to be the diet available against Duke as well. So you have to hit some jumpers. You need Jackson. You need Sellers to hit some. Maybe Bryce Hopkins stays hot. I couldn't believe he hit 6 against Kansas. And then you need the hero himself, Dylan Darling, to break out of his current 1 for 21 slump from beyond the arc. That is going to be hurtful if he can't knock anything down against Duke.
One of the greatest, arguably, off-season shot calls, although it took 5 months to develop, by our own KJ.
Oh, man. Yeah. I could not believe that on the same day he and Alvaro Folgueras were the heroes after they were like main characters in the Discord all off season. And now, of course, Darling, that was his first basket of the day. It wasn't like he dominated the game and hasn't scored double figures since March 3rd. But yes, a true hero and a legend of the Basket Under Review Discord last offseason.
But that's your advertisement to sign up for sure. I will note that it's a small sample compared to the whole season, but in conference play, like Jackson shot 36% from three, Darling 39. They have shooters. It's just that none of them are elite shooters.
Yep. Even Sellers, it's at 31% in conference play, but that guy's very streaky. He can make 5 in a game if he needs to.
And I do worry that against Duke, especially, we made the point in the watch list, and we'll move on to a different team eventually here, I promise, if you hate Duke, that as everybody was jumping off the ship, I was really tempted to buy back in with the TCU game because that game set up for me as a get right affair. Kind of like when you see it doesn't happen anymore because it's different. But when a Saban Alabama team would get scared by a Mississippi State, and then you were like, oh, the next week they're just going to beat the pants off of whoever they play. And that kind of had the same vibe to me. It took a while to develop, and I know people are going to harp on the officiating or whatever, and do whatever you want to do. But it just seemed to me like the second half of that game, Duke clicked for the first time in a while and figured it out. And
yep.
That makes me fear for their opponents going forward, and especially for a St. John's team probably likely to, I'm going to guesstimate here, take north of 40% of their shots from deep. We've seen them shoot 6 for 28 in games this year from deep, 5 for 20 against UConn. 4 for 22 against Ole Miss forever ago. Remember when they played Ole Miss really tight?
Barely. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. It might as well have happened 10 years ago. But what if they go 6 for 24 from 3? That's bedtime pretty early to me.
Yes, would absolutely agree. I mean, look at TCU shooting under 40% inside the arc. You're not really getting easy buckets against this Duke team, especially with Ngungba back. And to your point, I tweeted something about the officiating when it was close, about 25 minutes into the game, but then Duke completely pulled away. It was not an officiating game. That's not what decided that. Duke was clearly the better team. And St. John's isn't all that dissimilar from TCU. I think they've got the versatile, disruptive front court that can kind of cause some issues. That's why Duke had so many turnovers. But I think the offensive struggles could be also similar if they're not able to knock down perimeter jumpers.
Do you think there was a TCU media member who was like Matt Jones and was like, I almost yelled at an official, so I had to leave?
Oh God, I didn't even see that. It was a 20-point loss. That's the biggest deal here. We can't focus on one call that changed the game or anything. Okay, let's move to Tom Izzo and Bobby Hurley. Excuse me, Dan Hurley. God, how dare I?
Bobby Hurley. That would be oh man, I'd pick Michigan State 10 times out of 10.
Yeah, if we're doing a body swap here and suddenly Bobby's coaching.
My big one here for MSU, 21 of 46. That's what they shot from 3 this opening weekend. Now, I will note, this is not the MSU of last year, which is an abhorrent three-point shooting team. This one was actually pretty good. 36% before this weekend, 36.5 after it. Nothing wrong with that at all. And in conference play, they began to shoot a little better and a little better. And it's helped them, kind of power down in a way I didn't expect this year. To be honest, I thought outside shooting would be a real problem for them. But to their credit, Kerr Tang has developed into a much better shooter than I thought was possible. Jackson Kohler is almost at 40% for the season. Fears remains streaky at best as a deep shooter, but 32% is frankly better than I thought. And this is all while getting more or less a nothing year from Trey Fort, who I thought would have to be a really big part of the shooting for them to get over the top. But all that being said, 21 of 46 helps cover up some things. Helps cover up that you had a frankly really poor rebounding game against North Dakota State, which I didn't see coming. I think had 6 more turnovers than Louisville in the round of 32. And while Louisville was, we'll just charitably say, streaky themselves, they did start to hit more towards the end of the game, but it just kind of felt like big brother, little brother, stiff arm, keep them at a distance the whole way type of affair from MSU, where it never felt like, I'm looking right now and it's like, I don't remember Louisville ever being within 5 points in this game. But at one point they were, but it feels like the entire game MSU led by 5 to 10. So
yep, exactly.
Key threes help them keep that distance. They shot pretty well from the line too. That's more of a structure to me of them being more downhill than Louisville was. But I do question how sustainable that is. This is not the greatest shooting team in history. And, the reason why you're constantly up 5 to 10 is it did seem, and this is more of a vibes thing than a real analysis, that every time Louisville felt like they were getting close, Michigan State hit a three to get the distance back to about 5 to 10 points.
Yeah, the timing of the threes, they've got generally the right guys taking them. Now, Cohen Carr was 2 for 4. Don't know if that's going to last, but your guy Trey Fort did hit 3 against Louisville. He hit I think he had an and one that was pretty huge in the first half. And they do get Kohler some pretty good looks. And I think some teams are packed in because they want to avoid the Cohen Carr baseline cuts and the roll men coming down the lane against Fears' ball screen stuff. But they're able to open up the perimeter just enough. And yeah, I mean, they're top 40 nationally in 3-point percentage compared to last year when they were 319th. They're getting the right guys, the right amount of shots. They don't take a ton, but if they do hit those like 8 to 10 each game and they continue to dominate the glass and dominate the rim on both ends, they've got maybe a higher ceiling than I thought just because the shooting is better than I even realized.
I will note, and I'm not the biggest shot quality guy. I kind of feel like it's a coping mechanism more than anything when you get something wrong.
That's my favorite thing to use. I love it.
Yeah, it's team cope for sure, copium. But I will note, like, MSU's scores for the first 2 games were really unimpressive. Like, their shot quality score against North Dakota State was 66 to 61, which I'm going to admit does not really line up with how I thought the game went. But the Louisville one does actually feel fairly real to me. Louisville actually won the shot quality score 79 to 72. I thought Louisville got better shots. And actually did get more shooting possessions. I think I just calculated it 66 to 64. So, for a team like MSU that really should thrive in shot volume, that's a little alarming to me. And, coming up against a UConn team that runs a lot of great stuff, while I'm not the biggest fan of this UConn team, and frankly, I will admit, was rooting for UCLA. I'm sorry to UConn faithful. It just would have been really funny to see Mick Cronin whine about another trip.
Yes.
He probably would have. I've seen the Statue of Liberty 4 times, something like that.
Yeah.
It would have
I'm
been
going to
so
see the
good.
Washington Monument. Are you kidding me?
But I just do think while they made it, and it's great, and I think they covered the spread in both games. Definitely NDSU.
Yes,
Probably
they covered.
Louisville.
Yeah, I know because I was in a bar with a loud contingent of Michigan State fans that had a TV that was ahead of mine in Vegas.
Oh,
So I
that's
knew
the worst
exactly what
feeling.
was going to happen. Yes, the
I
roars
had
happened
that for a
before.
World Cup final once, and it was
Oh,
brutal.
that's a nightmare.
Um, but I do think like they're in the Sweet 16, but they can and should play better than they have. You can't rely on shooting this well from 3 forever, I would say.
Yeah, totally agree. 10 for 20 from 3 against North Dakota State definitely swung some of that. And there's a point earlier in that Michigan State game, kind of late first half. I think they were 6 for 12, and Louisville was like 4 of 19 from 3.
Mhm.
And the looks weren't, Michigan State probably does a better job of getting paint touches to lead to those threes. But still, you'd expect a little bit of a better shooting performance from Louisville there. So I agree. That's the thing I highlighted. I wrote power rankings for The Athletic, and I highlighted that is what lifts Michigan State's ceiling. So that's something to watch. All right, Huskies, UConn.
Talk about a big day on the boards. 2 big days, really. 44.7%. This is UConn's offensive rebounding percentage in the first 2 games. This is weighted a little bit by getting to play Furman and UCLA. UCLA, a quietly pretty bad defensive rebounding team this year. But I'm going to salute this nonetheless. They got back around 41% of their misses against the Bruins. That helped them overcome a horrendous 25% turnover percentage. I'm going to wager they're probably not going to enjoy the same 21% edge on twos, and they probably won't get back 45% of their misses against Michigan State of all teams. But at the same time, MSU doesn't really force turnovers. And this UConn team did win. I mean, like, we're going back to the shot quality thing, won it convincingly both times. Like, UCLA hung for probably 30 minutes, I would say. And I was so proud of Mick getting in one technical for the road. He said, "I'm leaving here with something," and
Yep.
good for you. I'm proud of that. Um, but I thought UConn played well. I do feel there might be something more to the quote unquote UConn plays better against non-conference than Big East competition. I I do have a really hard time taking that into like I just it doesn't really seem real to me. But they did play above expectations in both games. Well, not Furman, but you know what I mean, UCLA. And I think we maybe undersold them a little bit.
Yep, and if you get a healthier Demery, I mean, he played 22 minutes against UCLA. He only took 2 shots, both
He
threes.
didn't
Wasn't
look good, to be honest.
no.
It looked like a 70-80% effort.
Yep. So probably fairly important that that is a Friday game, as you mentioned. Every day matters in recovery when you're
Mhm.
talking about Foster. And I definitely think UConn is even harder to prep for on that 1 day turnaround because of
Mhm.
all the intricate stuff they run offensively. And, Mick Cronin is a fantastic defensive coach. This maybe not his best defensive personnel season, but that was a quick turnaround, and UConn executed really well. You got the Jaden Ross 3-point barrage early in the first half that kind of bolstered them. And then Caravan and Braylon Mullins carried them throughout it. I thought UCLA would hang around a little more than they did, but then that kind of run midway through the second half where they turned the game into a little bit more of a laugher was the degree and the level of UConn that I'm sure Husky fans are like insisting was underneath the hood the whole time after they were kind of up and down through Big East play.
Yeah, I'm excited to see this game on a Friday because it gives a lot of vibes of you know, UConn is extremely hard to prepare for, but you do have 5 days versus MSU who says, you know, deal with it.
Yeah,
There's just like
exactly.
we're not going to run anything special. Just get out of our way. It's like the Texans defense in a way.
It's like here comes a Jeremy Fears ball screen where he weaves around, and then probably gonna either get a Kohler stretch three or a little floater or something. But yeah, that I am looking forward to that game. Really, that region is going to be fascinating. All right, let's go south. Well, to the Iowa Nebraska Sweet 16 game of your dreams, folks. The field of dreams. If you build it, they will come. Both states known for their corn, and we've got a battle here. Iowa. My number here is 61. That is the number of possessions that Iowa held Florida to. It was easily the lowest of the Gators season. There was a great piece on CBS. Michael McKelvey, I believe is his name, the YouTuber that does some of these videos. And it was about the war of pace and the tug of war back and forth. And is it better to play slow or fast? For an underdog, it's definitely better to play slow to minimize possessions. It increases the chances of an upset. Iowa played on that perfectly. The other number I very easily could have chosen was 0. And that was the net rebound differential for Iowa against Florida. Massively important, basically equal in percentage on both ends of the floor, 27-27 overall in rebounds. I couldn't believe Iowa battled Florida to a stalemate there, especially in a very half-court game. This was a unbelievably executed game plan by the Hawkeyes, and yes, it took a buzzer beater to win it, but that's kind of what you need, or not a buzzer beater, but a big time go-ahead shot. That's kind of what you need to knock off a team like Florida that's so good at shot volume and has just been a juggernaut of late.
Yeah, I am so impressed by these guys. Ugh, just such a thrilling win, and you have not only that, but you have the way that the game played out pace wise. I have a piece coming up on Basket Interview, either the day you hear this or the day after. But Iowa averaged 22.2 seconds per possession, Florida 15.4, a 7-second per possession difference. That means Iowa had the ball, I believe, 7 more minutes than Florida did in this game, which is insane. Like, that's extremely hard to do. And yet they did it. I mean, not just from defensive rebounding, but offensive rebounding. You think about all those tap outs Iowa has to the perimeter and just how long they can make a possession. And, you know, whether you get buckets off of it or not, you ideally would, but even when you don't, that makes a defense work for a minute straight. And it's a lot of movement. It's a lot of, defending on the perimeter. Like, you have to do your job over and over. And I just love the way they do that. Like, it's a hard system to defend, even though it looks simple. And I think it's kind of sold people the wrong way on it in a little bit. The key thing for me with McCollum, So excluding the final minute last year against Mizzou, which was, foul after foul, which, that's just how it plays out. That game was at 61 possessions entering the final minute. The Texas Tech game was 61. This year, you've got Clemson 54 possessions, Florida 61 possessions. Even in the Big Ten tournament, the Maryland game was at 61 entering the final minute. Ohio State finished at 58. Even the two Nebraska games this year, which were regular season, the home win over Nebraska was 60 possessions. The regulation amount of possessions against Nebraska was 65. These guys dictate the pace better than anyone in the sport, and it is highly impressive.
Yep. Another little box score thing. They outshot Florida State Florida. Florida from 2. Shot 70% against that interior defense. Now that's despite Florida having a 95th percentile average 2-point attempt distance. They're getting like layups and dunks a lot in that game, and Iowa still made a higher percentage of their twos. Iowa shot worse from 3. Pretty much was like, oh, if Florida shoots better than their opponent from 3, they're going to roll. And that did not happen here. Incredible job by them to negate the Gators' incredible shot volume advantage, rebounding advantage. I was very impressed by Iowa, and maybe we saw hints of it late in the year. They played really closely with Michigan at home, and that was kind of the sign of, okay, they can play up at this level. But even that game, they got out rebounded 38-25. It was kind of a turnover thing that they were able to force that game to go along, and it was 65 possessions against an up-tempo team. So it's just the plan was right and the execution was perfect for Iowa, and it one of the biggest upsets of the tournament, maybe the biggest upset so far.
You could arguably even say Iowa was a tad unlucky. Like, how many times will Bennett Sturts go 0 for 9 from 3? Tavian Banks, a really good free throw shooter, 79% on the season and 85% in Big Ten play, going 5 of 10 from the line. Pressure, of course, factors into that a little more than we can really determine from a stats perspective. But you could make the argument that in a more normalized game, Iowa probably wins this by multiple possessions.
Yeah, if you'd said, hey, Bennett Sturts is going 0 for 9 from 3, does Iowa have a chance? Be like, no, they're going to get smashed by Florida. Oh, a really, really incredible result there. Okay, Nebraska. My number for the Huskers is 62.5%, and that is the 3-point attempt rate that Nebraska is allowing in the tournament so far. They've given up 65 3-point attempts and 39 twos. This is even more extreme than their full season rate of 50%. Vandy was their 3rd highest 3-point attempt rate allowed all season. Troy was number 6. And they're 11-1 when they allow 56% or higher. So, like, if they're really forcing you to take threes, that's when they're at their best. And it kind of defies logic to me, Will, because I would think that makes higher variance game. If the other team's hot, then it's going to be a problem. But they recover well, the shooters. They force tough shots. And a lot of them are late in possessions where it's kind of scramble type threes rather than these in rhythm catch and shoot jumpers. I know this is a little bit schedule dependent or opponent dependent with like Vandy and Troy, but they couldn't get looks at the basket, and that's up to Nebraska's structure. I'm very intrigued by Iowa with all the time to prepare here, how they deal with that. And I'm sure Ben McCollum's like, yeah, we're probably not going to survive if we take 70% of our shots from 3.
And, I think it's a pretty good sign for Iowa in a sense that 1, they won at home, and 2, the second game went to overtime at Nebraska. And while Nebraska kind of had the good game state flow there, Iowa had to make a late comeback. I think they made a game-tying 3 like very late in the clock. It's still like notable to me that Iowa, generally speaking, has played well against Nebraska. Played up, I would say. So that's a little worrisome to me. I will also note I can't really admit I like that they got outshot volume so bad by Vandy. That was pretty ugly. I mean, you got, again, shot quality is a great coping tool if you bet on Vandy, I guess, or if you are a Vandy fan, which in that case, I really do feel poor for you. That's rough. But like Vandy won the shot quality score by 16 points. But
yeah,
I think you shouldn't apologize if you're Nebraska. You've earned this. You've earned to bank in a decade's worth of good luck, which you've done. And the funny thing that I can't stop thinking about is a potential Elite Eight game with Houston. Is Houston even bothered if they have to take 80% jump shots?
No, they're like, great. We can offensive rebound these. That's fantastic.
They're like,
I
okay, that's fine.
yeah, I would love to. I would love to go back and see how many teams like Nebraska are bottom 10 in the country in 3-point attempt rate allowed. So they give up a billion threes, and top 10 in 3-point percentage allowed. Maybe there's a couple Houston teams that'd be like that, or a Tom Izzo team or two. But to give up so many threes and have so few of them go in is telling of how good your 2-point percentage defense is and how tough it is to make shots against them. Okay, down to the bottom matchup here, Illinois and Houston, which is going to be a classic. But my number for Illinois is 0.83, which is their points per possession allowed against VCU, which was shocking to me. Surprisingly, only their 6th best this year, but some of that is by games. But it's only their 4th best against a top 100 team. They held Northwestern to a 68.5 points per 100 possessions, Mizzou 75.2, Oregon 78.9. Yes, they were helped by awful 3-point shooting, but they held VCU to 47% inside the arc, a low offensive rebound rate. I like their defensive setup against Houston. We'll talk Houston in a second, but they force a ton of mid-range jumpers. Houston's going to be happy to take those. But Illinois does that because it keeps them in great possession for defensive boards, and they're not going to get dominated on the glass by the Cougars because of their size. Do you know what Illinois' record is when they keep their opponent below 111 points per 100 possessions? Not a big bar to clear.
When you put it like that, I feel like it's going to be, something in 0 or something in 1.
Yep, they're undefeated. They have if they just all they have to do is stay below 111 per 100, and they have not lost a single game this year. The offense is that good, so the ceiling just completely hinges on the defense, and the defense looked really good against VCU.
Now, is that good or is that bad that, I'm looking now, 3 times this year they've had 1.23 points per possession or higher and have lost?
Yeah, that is maybe the alarming factor that the defense can be super leaky against the wrong opponents.
But I was highly impressed. And honestly, it will get glossed over because of the game state. VCU actually did a really good job against the Illinois offense. 1.15 points per possession against Illinois is a tremendous result. That's one you can, I know you lost that game by 21. You're sad, whatever. You can take that and just be happy. That's a really good result against Illinois. Holding them to 56% from 2 and 37% from 3 is not a bad day at the office.
Yeah.
And, they couldn't score on them either, but it is what it is. I think this Illinois team is scary for a good reason.
Yep. And they're an interesting matchup with Houston, who I will give my number on there now. 20% is my number for Houston. And the Cougars are 19-0 when they force a turnover rate of 20% or better this season. They're 12-5 when they don't. Now, 2 of those wins when they don't were against Texas A&M and Idaho, both below that threshold, rather surprising. Idaho is the first time in 9 non-top 100 games where Houston did not force this turnover rate. So it seems like, I don't know if it's a change in defensive approach, but to not hit that rate against either Texas A&M or Idaho has me a little concerned going forward, where they're not forcing turnovers at the same percentage and same clip. That was a big story of their 3-game losing streak, that they didn't force many turnovers at all in that run in the Big 12. And because Illinois can battle them on the glass, I wonder if Houston's going to look pretty mortal against someone, especially a big strength of theirs is shot volume. But if they're not going to force that many turnovers, they're not going to dominate the boards against Illinois. Do they just get outmathed by a team that's going to take higher quality field goal attempts?
Counterpoint here, I would say, is that this is actually the second team all year Illinois will have played in the top 40 of opponent turnover percentage. The other was Iowa, who did force 12 turnovers against the Illini. If Houston forces 12 turnovers, I think they're in business. But yeah, I would agree that's a little alarming. Now, I do think it is good news. You didn't really have to force turnovers here. They were so dominant on the interior both ways in both games that it was this is a bonus if we force turnovers. I mean, especially against A&M, they were crushing them on the boards. But I will say,
it was rude what they were doing.
I thought it was delicious. The thing with Houston, Illinois, you are unlikely, not impossible, but unlikely to create that same gap on the boards against Illinois, who's a really good rebounding team in their own right. So it's kind of like strength versus strength there. If you can I would set the target at 18%. If you can get to 18% turnover percentage against Illinois, you're doing quite well. Like that's a really good day at the office. But as mentioned, it's not impossible for Illinois to have a bad offensive day. They've had them this year. But, you have to really scale down your expectations of what a bad offensive day are. They've had 4 games under 1.1 points per possession, but it's possible. And I'm very curious to hear your thoughts. Would you rather see Houston push the pace or slow this game down?
I mean, I just anticipate that they'll slow it because that's what they prefer to do. But they've a couple times they played a little more up tempo. Typically, it's been against lesser competition. But the 73 possession game against Arkansas stands out as something that they could try to imitate. But Illinois is not really going to let them do it. That's been a very half court team this year. Can they own the defensive glass enough to try to grab and go? Do they let Flemings just run in the open court? I feel like that's something he hasn't gotten to do all that much this year because of the system that he's in, but he is fairly lethal that way because he's so quick. He gets to his spots. This feels like to me it's going to be a half court slog where can Houston hit enough of its mid-rangers and get more open threes against a scheme that wants to take them away generally? I don't know, because I think Illinois is going to get slightly better shots.
So I do think it's going to be a slog. Both of these teams are really good at holding down teams in transition. The other aspect of it for me, I haven't really heard this discussed much, and we'll see if it makes it into the preview. Illinois has flashed a zone at times this year, an intriguing one, especially with all their length. And while Houston doesn't really need an invitation to take more jumpers, and it would open up, some potential rebounding issues, which this Illinois team is not great at defensive rebounding. They're way more dangerous on the offensive side of things. It still is interesting and curious to me. Is that something I could see being exploited by Houston? Like, does Illinois even bother to try the zone? But at the same time, if you want to eliminate Houston getting to the paint, that's a good way to do it. It's such a good coaching matchup, man. Brad versus Kelvin, that is truly about as good as it gets in 2026.
Yep, and maybe you won't find 2 defenses that are in stylistic juxtaposition with each other, like super aggressive trap ball screens versus heavy drop. It's nowhere near similar. The other little stat nugget is Houston going to take 5 free throws in this game? Illinois never fouls. Houston never gets to the free throw line. There's a chance that they're single digit in their trips to the charity stripe, especially before any sort of like crunch time if they're are winning. But all right, that's it for the South. We can move back up now, Will, to your side at the top, head to the West, which you said was the least intriguing of the regions to you.
Yeah, this makes me want to go to bed. No, it doesn't. My number
if
for
Arizona, Arkansas puts you to bed, then come on, we gotta wake you up.
Arizona. So my number here is 5. That is the number of players averaging 10 plus points per game. But my number here is also 1. That's the number of players averaging over 14, and that's Braden Burries. The point here is that Arizona just comes in waves. They've got so many options that they are remarkably hard to stop and hard to scout. I did come up with a third number. Arizona's got a lot of numbers to them. That's a real number school, I've heard. 38. Number of offensive rebounds secured in the first 2 games out of a possible 75. 38?
Yikes.
Let me tell you, you get back half your misses against Arkansas, that's a blowout. That's an instant death knell for the Hogs. So we already know that this Arizona team is exceptionally well built just about everywhere. But boy, when you have that depth of scoring, when you have that depth of rebounding, I don't know what you do.
I can't believe they shot sub 40% from 2 against Utah State. Now, when you get 55% of your misses on the offensive glass, it offsets it a little bit. And I don't believe Arkansas's interior defense will have anywhere near the same luck in that department. But yeah, they kind of showed only taking 17 threes despite that 2-point percentage deficiency. Like their margin for error is still pretty darn large. And yes, Burry's hit like that one really tough step back late in the game that sort of extended from beyond like a 5-point game and ended up being a 10, 12-point game to end. I just am so impressed by Arizona night to night basis, the rim dominance, the paint dominance, the glass dominance. That team knows who it is. Koa Pete looks giant on TV for some reason, like next to an LIU four-man or a Utah State four-man. He just looks like he's eating a Mario mushroom somehow. But they're kind of inevitable at this point, and Arkansas is going to need a heck of a like perimeter shooting game and a cuff performance to take them out.
And the thing that I guess I could get to here a little more is like Calipari is better on short rest in the tournament than he is on a longer layoff. I've noticed. You see this show up a lot in conference tournaments. It's obviously in recent memory now because they beat Vandy in the SEC tournament final. But Arkansas in general, it's harder to prep for how to stop that offensive system. And it's not like overly complicated. It's just like they've got Acuff and Thomas and you don't. But it's harder to figure out how to stop that when you have 36 hours to prep versus when you have 5 full days. So that's an intriguing thing to me showing up in that game. I'm wondering where they create their advantages other than simply having an elite scorer.
I'm looking. I didn't realize. I thought Utah State played more zone. Only 3 possessions per synergy. And people don't really zone Arizona much despite their lack of shooting. I think it's because they're like, well, if we zone them, they might get 65% of their misses. So that probably has deterred teams from trying to take that approach against Arizona. But what is your Arkansas number? Let's pivot to that.
86. This is not me saying they're out of the tournament. 86 is the points surrendered in the paint to High Point and Hawaii, 12 and 13 seeds. This is continuing.
It's alarming.
It's bad. This is continuing with Arkansas' season-long trend of allowing an astonishing 38.8 points per game in the paint. I think that is first or second percentile. It's very low at CBB Analytics. It's easily the single worst rate remaining in the entire field. Now, the Hogs are 13-0 and holding their opponent to 34 points or less in the paint, and they've done that against some decent offenses. So they did that against Vandy twice, Auburn once. That's not bad. You can live with that. This is the best paint offense they're going to play all year unless you count Florida. Can they do it here? I'm going to say I've got my doubts, but the game and the path to an Arkansas upset for me centers around simply figuring out how to stop the bleeding down low.
Was it the Florida game that, or Arkansas, Florida, where Florida had, I think, 70 paint points, 70 or 72? Yeah, that's the matchup that alarms me. And
they gave up 111 points to Florida.
Yeah, the similar structure-ish and up-tempo barrage the offensive rebounding, 2 giant bigs on the court at all times, sometimes a third, the way Karchenkov plays. I fear for Arkansas. If you're going to let High Point shoot 65% inside the arc, what is Arizona going to do to you? And does it make sense to you? Like the personnel for this Arkansas team, there's height, there's physicality on the wings. I don't quite understand why they're so bad in terms of 2-point percentage defense, but they really are. It's a true Achilles heel for that level of team.
I think it starts with the guards.
Yep.
Darius Acuff, like it or not, I could make an argument that he is the single worst defender left in the NCAA tournament. He is atrocious, atrocious defensively. Now it's outweighed by just how good he is on offense. It almost makes it completely meaningless. But that being said, like you can't be as bad as he is. I'm sorry. Defensively and expect to like hold up the rest of the way. It really does make me, concerned going forward for them. And like maybe you could make the argument that like Phylon is as bad or worse, but I don't know if I could get there. Acuff is just really atrocious on that end of the court. And they just don't have guard stoppers, which forces the bigs to make a lot of tough decisions. Arkansas has a like kind of bad foul rate at times, especially in games against better offenses. They don't really force turnovers. And because the bigs have to do so much in blocking the shot, I think that puts them out of position to get the rebound on a missed shot. And that allows them to give up a lot of boards, which more points in the paint. So it's a bad matchup all around to me. Now, that being said, Arizona does primarily run drop coverage, and running drop coverage against Acuff and crew is a one-way ticket to giving up 90-plus points. So I think this game... So there were games... I don't know how old our audience is. I'm going to guess an average age of about us, which is like 32 to 35, something like that. So we weren't around for the peak Loyola Marymount years. You could definitely see a Loyola Marymount type score here where it's like, oh, Arizona won 116 to 98 in regulation.
That would be electric. I'm trying to what the game last year. Arizona had was it second round game? It was 190. Oh, it was Duke game, 193 in the Sweet 16. Let's get one of those. I'm quite all right with that.
KenPom projected score of 87 to 79 strikes me as extremely underselling it.
Yeah, given what I would expect the possession count to be and the rather elite efficiency on both ends of the court that I would expect.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't get Wisconsin, Arkansas like I wanted, but Arkansas High Point was pretty darn good itself in an up-tempo game, and now we get Arkansas, Arizona. So I will accept basketball gods.
Mm-hmm. Texas, quite the... So I will ask you up front, do you consider them a Cinderella?
I do not.
I do not either. There's been some interesting debate on this online. My opinion is that if you're a member of not just the Power 5, but I would say the top 2 or top 3, we'll count the Big 12, but especially the SEC and Big 10, which have been just hoovering up teams at an alarming rate. If you're a member of any of those 3 conferences, you're not a Cinderella, period. Like I would say NC State potentially qualifies from 2 years ago. But even then, they have like a top 40 basketball budget. I don't. So the point is, I'm not considering Texas a Cinderella, but they are here because of some miraculous, it's not midnight yet stuff on the opponent 3-point shooting front. Opponents have shot 8 for 38 from deep against them. And in March, you do need good fortune. So far, Texas has had it. That was with BYU making a pair of threes in the final 4 minutes to actually make this percentage look better. Nobody can blame this for happening, and Texas absolutely should enjoy the good fortune while it exists. And to be honest, playing against a Purdue team that has a really long average 2-point percentage distance and has enjoyed some really good 3-point variants themselves so far, there's worse options to play in the Sweet 16. But I will say, looking at their 2 games so far for Texas, you look at the BYU game, and while they did outscore them, and it was a pretty dominant effort, I would say, both ways. Against Gonzaga did win both the shot volume battle and the shot quality battle. BYU outshot Texas from 2. I do wonder just how long this can last in general.
Yeah, it's a team like you kind of think of as really quality shot makers. They've got a post-up threat in Vokutitis that's hard to guard. He draws a ton of fouls. But the defense was supposed to be the major weakness. And to your point, I think it's been propped up by some semi-unsustainable 3-point shooting. I'm getting Oregon State vibes from 2021 when opponents just could not shoot against them. In their first 3 games in the run to the Elite Eight, Oregon State opponents shot 23.1% from 3. That's, I guess, even better than what Texas opponents are shooting so far. I don't know if this can sustain. Purdue also creates such great 3-point looks because of the offensive action they run, the Braden Smith, Kaufman-Wren pick and roll. You're kind of having to pick your poison. What shots are you going to give up? Maybe the choice there is let's just not help off shooters and let those two feast. But I think Texas is going to have to help and gamble on the idea that another team would miss threes again. And who knows what CJ Cox's status is. Takes one potential shooter out of the lineup, but even if he doesn't play, Purdue's got enough perimeter threats that I think there's no way they brick their way through a game the way that Queens and Gonzaga did.
So here's a fun stat from Evan Abrams at Action Network. So there is one team that was actually looks like a 14 seed or higher to enter the tournament with 1,001 or higher odds to win it all and make the Sweet 16. Texas is one. Can you name the other since 1999?
So
this is the first 4 team. I'll spoil that. It was not NC State, surprisingly.
Okay, so I guess first 4 ramps up the George Mason, not for sure. UCLA.
2018 Syracuse is the only other team
Oh,
from a power conference to do this in the last 27 years. So it's pretty hard to sustain it. I will note that out of the total teams who've done it before, so it's 8 total. It's a bunch of mid majors plus 2018 Syracuse, 1999 Purdue, 1999 Oklahoma. Like 2023 Princeton is on this list, 2022 St. Peter's. I will note only one made the Elite Eight, which was St. Peter's, but only one of those teams played Purdue, which was St. Peter's. So hey, it's
hey
not over
now.
yet.
Exactly. The Boilermakers are just always trying to seek out the next seed on Matt Painter's upset bingo card, right? Okay, what do you got for Purdue?
15. This is the total number of free throw attempts surrendered by the Boilermakers in their 2 games so far. It's really low. This is, in general, the NCAA tournament has less fouls than people believe. And in this one in particular, they've been fairly solid and not calling a ton. Like, games haven't been going super long for fouls. It's been the friggin' monitor reviews. But this is really important to me because Purdue's about to play Texas, who averages 26 free throw attempts per game, followed by likely Arizona, who averages 27. We haven't seen it much this year, but we are going to see it here. Can Purdue manage to stay out of foul trouble and not give away easy points against 2 of the very best teams in the nation at hunting these easy points?
Yeah, I think even holding Miami to that low of a number was really impressive. They're not like super astronomically highly ranked in free throw rate, but the physicality was there. They were going after them in the paint. Renew is a big downhill type of threat. It's definitely a strength of Purdue's, and the bigs try to stay in the court, avoid fouling. Kaufman Wren's only 3 fouls per 40. That is, it's massive, and that's part of why they don't force that many turnovers. But it's probably a huge tug of war going back and forth to your point. Like, can they keep Titus off the free throw line and keep all of their bigs on the court, not a foul trouble? A big storyline for them. I'm buying Purdue there. I just think Texas clock is going to strike midnight, as you referenced earlier with the Cinderella thing. But I like that number because, man, that is really impressive, particularly against Miami to me.
And here's a quick stat for you. Purdue this year, 3-4 when allowing more than 20 free throw attempts. 26-4 when holding their opponent to 20 or fewer.
Jeez. Okay. Yeah. Rather stand out there. Would you take Purdue, Texas?
I would take Purdue over Texas. The Arizona Purdue game actually strikes me as a really fascinating matchup. I don't know how I feel about that yet. You would lean Arizona on principle, but I continue to believe this Purdue team is being sold short a little bit for past crimes. So I'm wondering if there might be something to it.
And I think what they did to Michigan in the Big Ten tournament really stands out, like controlling that entire second half.
Very similar team.
Yep, plays up tempo, is gigantic in the paint. It's theoretically possible there for sure. Okay, down to the Midwest region, where we've got Will's Tennessee Volunteers waiting to be discussed. I will start though with Michigan. My number is 33%. And Michigan is undefeated this year when they shoot 33% or better from 3. Well, they shot 46% and 48% from 3 the opening weekend. They just are not beatable when they make at least 40. Can you name, the only team to keep it within single digits against them when they shot 40% from 3?
I can, because this is in the Midwest region reset up at Basket Under Review. It's Iowa.
Yes, there we go. Too much research. This guy is all over my trivia questions because he's too well schooled. But the keynote on that is that Iowa held them to only 12 attempts from 3. So if they're going to make them, you got to limit them. And it's an interesting one or the other. Like, pick your poison. If you want to limit the threes, then you're going to have to force them to paint. But some teams, the better option is to hope that they're cold from 3. Alabama always loves to play the math game. I wonder if they're going to somehow try to get Michigan into the mid-range, but this is Michigan's region if they shoot the ball at all close to what they did on the opening weekend.
Yeah, I'm going to admit I kind of think this could be a demolition. So I'm looking it up right now. These are Alabama's numbers allowed against obviously Michigan's going to be number 1. They're second in the country. But the 6 best other 2-point percentage offenses Alabama played this year. This is points allowed. 100, 87, 95, 86, 98, 96. None of those went to overtime.
Yikes, that's a little bit concerning. I also just, maybe the comparison point is Elite Eight last year, the Duke game, coming off a legendary shooting performance for Alabama. Duke kind of went, it was dominant. It was never a real game. Duke got up early, led double digits for almost the entire second half, ends up winning by 20. That would be my fear here, is that especially if they don't have the added variance of Aiden Holloway, another big-time three-point shooter, they can't turn up the variance on the game enough, and Michigan just kind of pummels them inside.
And
But
yeah,
no, go ahead.
No, you're good. I mean, with Michigan, it's just the equation for me is going to be like, can you hold them down from 2 at all? And I think they've, I wouldn't say benefited from a bad strength of schedule in the tournament. When you play 16 seed, it's obviously going to be bad. But even SLU, like one of the best 2-point percentage defenses out there, couldn't hold them down. So I'm just struggling to kind of see the path here.
Yep. All three of Michigan's losses, they shot sub 60% from 2, and they shot over 60% in like 20 of their games. So that does tell you, can you limit that a little bit? That's the way to keep it somewhat vulnerable. Now, I did mention Holloway a lot, but my number for Alabama is plus 0.4. That's his net rating against top 30 opponents. And there's a decent sample size of it for Alabama. This per Hoop Explorer, he like hasn't mattered quite that much, and top 30 opponents are all they're going to see for the rest of the tournament anyways. But Houston Millette's been really good off the bench as kind of the scrappy role piece. On the Jamison has given them some offensive pop, and then Wrightsell and Amari Allen are just outstanding. Allen's been such a revelation all season. Wrightsell's given them the more shooting when they don't have Holloway out there. Holloway's also a bad defender, so this kind of improves them a little bit that way. I feel like maybe myself included, I made too big of a deal of him not being there on the opening weekend. At this point, he doesn't completely change their outlook because he's such a one-way guy.
He is such a one-way guy, but I do think eventually this is going to show up. They had a tremendous positive variance game, and no, we're not going to take anything from them for it. It's just like that's how it is against Texas Tech. I mean, they shot 45% on extremely high volume from 3. Texas Tech shot 16% on high volume from 3. You run that game back 10 times, probably not going to get that same result again, especially when Texas Tech outshot them from 2 and from the free throw line. Still, Alabama has been rebounding really well, which I've been impressed by. I could see them against a Michigan team that is like not otherworldly at rebounding. They're good at it, but not otherworldly, especially in the defensive end. They got a few times in conference play by some better rebounding opponents there. I could see them hanging, and certainly I can definitely see them just lighting it up from 3 because that's what they do. It's definitely possible. I mean, people overrate 3-point defense in general. It's just like you really don't have that much influence. Michigan, which is, a good 3-point defense, as much as that exists, let Howard make 8 in a row on Thursday. 8. Howard, like it's just like you can't control it. It happens. So if Alabama had 8 in a row, we wouldn't be surprised really that it's a possibility in any one of their games. But by the same token, this is all about like, can they stop Michigan from 2 on the other end? Like Alabama's 77-12 under Oates when holding an opponent under 48% from 2 over the last 5 seasons, 14-3 this year when doing it. And to their credit, their worst 2-point percentage allowed all year, 61.1%, is below Michigan's average of 61.5%. So they can certainly drop Michigan a little bit on that end of the court. Like you said, under 60% would kind of be the goal there. But I will note, in the 6 games Alabama's won this year, where an opponent shot 52% or better from 2, they averaged 96 points per game in those wins.
Jesus.
So
Okay.
you kind of have to go ballistic anyway.
Yep. They might even need a second straight Noah Williamson game, which I could not believe he was a positive contributor. Now that game was relatively out of hand no matter what. But after he had been like the reason they thought they needed Charles Bediako was basically because Williamson wasn't good all season. He was a positive contributor in 2 straight tournament games. All right, let's flip to the bottom, and let's just skip Tennessee. We don't need to discuss them, right?
Yeah,
Well, there's
who
nothing
cares?
No. My number for them was 8.2 versus 4.2. That was the average 2-point attempt distance against Virginia. Tennessee's was 8.2 feet. Virginia's was 4.2 feet. And yet, Tennessee shot 50% from 2, and Virginia was only 44%. Felix Blockpara was clearly outstanding in that game. He had some big-time challenges, some big-time swats. I think his length made a real impact against Virginia's finishing inside. This was just a surprising outcome for me, not because Tennessee won, Will. I was shocked that they got kind of outshot volumed.
Mm-hmm.
I thought if Tennessee was going to win and go on an extended run, it would be because of that offensive rebounding, creating a bunch more possessions. But Virginia's offensive rebounding was everywhere in this game, and it was really the Tennessee defense and their ability to hold any sort of finishing efficiency down well below norms for Virginia.
Yeah, I was a little surprised by it too. I mean, Virginia was an elite offensive rebounding team this year, so it's kind of like strength versus strength. And if you look at it percentage-wise, both teams got back, I think, 36+% of their missed shots. So both teams did pretty well exploiting the other, which is why the efficiency was so high both ways, I would argue. But I mean, and arguably Tennessee got a pretty good game from like guys you just wouldn't expect, like Bishop Boswell, 4 of 9 from 3. JP Estrella had a fadeaway jumper that I think gave Tennessee a 70-68 lead, if I'm remembering correctly. That was a shot I've not seen him hit this year. And I have watched every Tennessee game, for better or for worse. So there's like some things like that you can't repeat. But I will note, like, Tennessee made it through one half of that game, handling Virginia's defense extremely well. They had 1 turnover in the first half. Now in the second half, it cascaded pretty bad. Nate Ament had a nasty turnover at one point. Jacoby Gillespie, I can't remember the score, but a horrendous inbounds pass to Ament when Tennessee was up and Virginia was pressing. That gave Virginia basically a free possession. Little things like that they can't repeat, especially against Iowa State of all teams. I will admit I don't love the matchup at first glance, but Tennessee, especially depending on Jefferson's health, could take advantage. I do believe that like there is a path for them to get offensive rebounds against ISU. If you can get to the paint, you can get to the foul line against them as well, I will note. But, you know, there's some things in this game that happen you can't replicate twice. All that being said, you don't apologize for it. And like you mentioned, Akpara, tremendous impact in the paint in this game.
Yep. And I'll just kind of transition right into my Iowa State number because it's highly relevant to talking about that matchup. It's harkening back to what I said about Alabama, but plus 1.9 is Joshua Jefferson's net rating against top 30 opponents. And there's a sample size of basically 4 whole games, 237 possessions with him off the floor. And obviously he raises the ceiling. The best version is with him out there, but they still have the defensive identity of pressure without him, with Toure, with Lipsy. They're a little smaller and more frenetic with Heisey out there. To me, like, and the numbers back this up, Momcilovic is the one that's completely irreplaceable because he's the gravity, the shooting. Yes, Jefferson is outstanding on the boards, and defensively he's very versatile. He's a great playmaker at his size. But Lipsy can tag in as the lead playmaker. We saw that against Kentucky. I still think this team has real upside, and no surprise, they're still like a pretty clear favorite over Tennessee in the betting world, even without Jefferson. I will say I pretty strongly do not expect him to play. He was like barely even walking with the boot and crutches. But yeah, the fact that they can still be a little bit who they are, the identity that they want to be, of like frenetic, feisty, especially on the perimeter. I wouldn't take quite anything away from the Cyclones even without him.
Counterpoint, have you considered that hurts my feelings that Iowa State won't be worse?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I hate to break it to you.
I'm
That's okay.
kidding. No, I'm kidding. We all know they're really good. It's an extremely strong team. I do think Jefferson, if he doesn't play, that is going to be very impactful. But mostly to me in the defensive end. I think that like they have where I would back against like the lack of impact here, Kentucky doesn't have a point guard. And I do think
God,
that
no.
was like extremely meaningful in that game, especially after Iowa State did change up their defense. I thought early on, Sans Jefferson, it wasn't true drop, but it was actually less pressure on the perimeter and more like drop coverage, like inviting Kentucky to shoot. And when Kentucky started hitting, they said, screw it, we're going to go back to our normal stuff. It was back to the hard hedge, back to the blitz, and that ruined Kentucky the rest of the way. I would be remiss if I did not note Tennessee, while not playing this at all in the SEC, did have the fortune this year of playing Houston in the Players Era tournament and did beat Houston, which is, while not exactly the same as Iowa State is better and more strict about post denial than Houston is. And Houston comes out a bit further and their traps are not quite as frequent, I would say. Their initial blitz is harder and like tougher to overcome. But the same principles do generally apply to both. If you can hit the short roll and if you can hit the skip pass to the backside three, you can break it down a bit. That all being said, that's easier said than done. And Tennessee has had trouble with turnovers all year. And I'm not thinking that a Jefferson absence will really change that.
Yeah, I think the perimeter pressure can still get to him. And I mean, don't turn it over 20 times on 30% of your possessions like Kentucky, and your Vols have a chance. But that's what Iowa State can do. And you mentioned some of that skip pass, like hit the short rolls, like with Heisey out there instead of Jefferson, they are faster in terms of their recovery and a little bit more harassing that way. Bateman, also another guy that's speedster, can move out there and on the perimeter. I think without Jefferson, that this team would take a big step down, and the numbers say they probably won't take a huge step down, and performance against Kentucky indicated that as well. So I think we've got a couple of really good games there. Can either of the, we'll assume an outcome in the other game, but can either of the Cyclones or Vols beat Michigan, Will? Where do you stand on a clash there?
I feel a lot better about Iowa State than I would Tennessee. I think Tennessee might get that. Reminds me a lot of when Tennessee played Florida. And you remember that game being a demolition for 40 minutes. So I don't think Tennessee would fare well against U of M. But Iowa State, I actually think, could be a decent change up there. Again, there's not really a way to simulate that level of pressure in the Big Ten that I'm immediately thinking of. Nebraska would be closest, I would admit. And Nebraska did give Michigan some serious trouble. So that to me would, it's not a perfect 1-to-1, but there's some 1-to-1 to it. And with that in mind, I wouldn't be shocked at all if, that would be the one opponent I could point to and be like, oh, they could give Michigan some trouble. Iowa, sort of the same thing. Pretty hedgy, pretty blitzy, but not totally. Definitely a lot different in terms of, pure talent. But those type of teams, I do think hedge gives Michigan a little bit more trouble than like a pure drop would, though Michigan can struggle against either. That being said, I'm not really 100% sure how Iowa State would score consistently on Michigan.
Yep. I'm just trying to find hope here as I will be in person at the Chicago Regional. Like, am I just going to watch a crowning, a ceremonial march to the Final Four for Michigan? Or are we going to get some potential upset bids? And
I definitely think Iowa State would give them a good game. I don't know that I'd pick them outright, but I think it would be a much better game than a game against Tennessee.
Yep, we know there will be plenty of Iowa State fans in the building. The Ames North, maybe we'll call Chicago, after Kansas City is Ames South. But all right, well, I don't know exactly how we want to do a quick Willstradamus section here. Do you want to just pick your Final Four revised, or do you want to go quickly through every game? You tell me.
I'll do a quick Final Four. I also picked tonight's NIT games. Why not? I think that's funny.
There we go.
New Mexico's beating St. Joe's. Got no doubt about that in my heart. I am intrigued by an outright Wichita State win at Tulsa. Wichita State did play Tulsa pretty well both in the regular season and beat them in the conference tournament. I would lean Wichita's way there, actually, despite this game being at Tulsa. So that would be, I think, Wichita and UNM as semifinalist in Indy. Is that correct?
I think that's right too. And then Nevada, Auburn, Illinois State, Dayton are the other two quarters.
Auburn, unfortunately, seems like they want to win, so I guess we'll go with Auburn. And then Dayton doesn't lose meaningless home games. So, yeah, I think Auburn, Dayton, Wichita, and New Mexico semis in Indy. However that works out. I'm not even going to look up the bracket. But my revised Final Four here, I'm just going to go north to south. So East region, I am sticking with Duke. I just can't be moved off of my opinion that they are the best team to work with there. And especially with Ngongba coming back and Foster progressing, they're only going to get stronger, I think. And while St. John's is a decent changeup for them, I am automatically interested in any team that plays drop against Duke because, as we've covered, of the main coverages, Duke is least great against drop, which is what Siena ran, and Siena really befuddled them with it. But that being said, if they can get past St. John's, I like their odds against either of MSU or UConn. Let's go South region next. I am sticking with my Houston pick. Not really thrilled with it. I will pick an upset here and say Iowa topples Nebraska. I just think that's a really good matchup for Iowa. Illinois has had not like a true trouble, but some problems scaling up to the top of the top this year. I think of the Michigan game. I think of some of their other efforts against top 10 teams this year. Like, not terrible by any stretch, but nothing elite. If this game were, I'm going to be honest, if this game were played at Mackey Arena, I would pick Illinois. I'm not saying like even at Illinois Arena. If it were played at Mackey, I think Illinois would win by 15. But I will go with Houston over Iowa there. Up top in the West, boy, this is going to be a real regretful one. I will say Purdue advances.
Oh,
I'm gonna go
okay.
Purdue.
Good.
And then Midwest, I just have a hard time picking anybody other than Michigan to get it done. So,
Yep,
I'll go Duke, and this is Duke, Purdue, Michigan, Houston. So that's a 1-1-2-2, which is kind of boring, but pretty befitting, I would say.
Yep, I respect it. The one I've been back and forth on is maybe St. John's in the East, but yeah, Ngungba back and how they looked with him and the defensive fortitude there against St. John's offense that can be shaky on the jump shots. Aljonian Duke, Aljonian Houston. I've thought a lot about capitulating and taking Illinois there. The Houston location thing is relevant, I guess, but I do think Illinois will be fairly well represented and that they have a real chance there with the way those teams are just so different schematically. And then I'm sticking with Arizona and Michigan. So that I guess I'm 1-1-1-2 is my only two being Houston. It was my final four to start, back and forth between St. John's and Duke in the East. So might as well continue sticking with it. I haven't seen enough evidence to change it. But
I will say that like if of the three possible matchups left, St. John's is worse of the three for Duke for me. That's the one that I think is toughest. Like I don't really, as crazy as it sounds, it doesn't seem to me that like it would be that troublesome for them to beat MSU or UConn compared to St. Like just the defensive changeup seems so severe compared to the other two.
That athleticism of the front court and mobility of the front court, I think, is really can be disruptive for them. And I think it was disruptive against TCU for 25 minutes. So, all right. Anything else, Will, before we wrap it up here?
Nothing else. I mean, this is a really great set of games. The upside of a relatively upset-free round of 64, we only had 3 true ones for the second straight year, is that you get a great round of 32 and what's looking like a really good round or Sweet 16. If I had to pick a day that's better on the whole, I guess I would lean Friday over Thursday, but they're both so good. Like it's just like there's a potential for a couple of duds on Thursday. Like if Arizona runs away from Arkansas early or Purdue does the same to Texas, like the entire West region is kind of boring at that point.
Yeah, and hopefully that's not going to happen. Those are the CBS games, and Texas Purdue is the first tip, and Arizona Arkansas late. But yeah, I'm hoping out of the 8, let's get at least 6 like bangers. Let's get some real good ones here as the round progresses. That should be the benefit of the general lack of upsets. That's what we're hoping.
I will say, I'm going to make a prediction here. This is a real Willstradamus test. That one of the 2 10 p.m. tips goes to overtime. Houston, Illinois, or Iowa State, Tennessee.
I love that.
That's going to be nightmarish for the idiots like me who live on Eastern time.
Yep, much to the chagrin of the Reno workers and all that as well. But hey, that's okay. There's
not like a Blackhawks game the next day, right? Or Bulls or whatever.
No, thankfully, I don't
Okay,
think so.
good.
I haven't double checked that, but yeah, if there was a Saturday one in between there, that'd be tough. But okay, that wraps it up here for us at Stats by Will and Jim. Thank you to Will for all the data and the insight he brings. Shout out to Trilly Donovan for the opportunity and the platform for us to do this. To Sam Freyer and his team for our graphics. Corey Aldis, our producer behind the scenes. And thank you to Homefield, our presenting sponsor here on Stats by Will and Jim. And to the listeners, thank you for tuning in. Enjoy another great weekend of basketball. Hopefully, we'll have a pretty fun Final Four set for us, and we'll get another episode out to you, setting the stage for Indianapolis in a week. But until then, enjoy the hoops and cheers.